She has created Heartspace solutions so that you can learn how to create the most loving, intimate relationship possible. I hesitate on that word because that's a huge goal. No, she has also developed unique tools and skills that will allow you to create the deepest level of passion, romance, understanding, peace, and cooperation. I know, sigh. Even when you are the only partner that is learning this. So whether you need to learn more about dealing and dating or about marriage, about divorce, any issue, please let Susan show you how to accomplish this. And I'd just like to remind you that Susan is always offering a complimentary 1-hour private telephone session so that everyone can transform their lives, their relationships, and their future. And I love what you say, Susan, that if people would do 100% of what works and 0% of what doesn't, you can have that life that you dream about. It becomes a reality. So welcome, dear.
Thank you. Thank you, dear. I'm so happy to be here. This is a very hot show.
Oh, isn't it? I
Big
know. Is it the air conditioning's lacking or is it me? Here we go. Okay, I have some questions for you tonight.
Very good.
I know that you started with this hot topic, sex. And can you explain that? Actually, we know how much time and energy the people spend on sex, both inside and outside of marriage. Please help us understand.
Well, this is the only domain where you cannot have the help of anybody else besides your spouse if you're in a monogamous relationship. And since most Americans claim they want monogamy, most of them don't always have it, but they claim that this is really important. So you have got to pick that partner who takes your breath away, gives you butterflies in your stomach. That's not all you need to look for. You need to look for a lot of stability and respect and companionship and all these other 19 things we're talking about. Except if the butterflies aren't there, if the chemistry isn't there, don't bother. Because you have to settle for mediocrity in a lot of areas of life. Don't settle for mediocrity in sex, because mediocre sex is terrible sex, and you will get yourself out of there, or your partner will leave you behind. So be very, very careful about this. Be practical and go for the gold ring when it comes to sex.
Now, what is the second question on your list? I'm curious. This is going to be, I'm guessing about monogamy and how important that is in a marriage. And let's say, please explain to us why this is huge.
Well, first of all, that would be breaking your marriage vows, and you don't want to do that if you really believe you have a marriage worth saving. This is an important, really, point. If you've got everything that you want in your relationship and you want monogamy, then you better make sure you have fabulous sex. You're not going to have monogamy, you're not going to have a marriage if you don't have fabulous sex. If you don't know how to do that, if you don't know how to talk to your partner about it, if you don't know how to motivate your partner about it, and I mean this at any age, at any phase in the marriage, then call me, because I've helped, lots and lots of clients get through this. But the problem with the lack of monogamy, the serious problem, is if you are one of two and each of you is sleeping with somebody else, then you're giving your energy to those other people who are then giving their energy theoretically to other people, not just bringing it back to you. It wouldn't be so bad or problematic if each of you is having sex with someone else and they're only having sex with you, and then they give you back your energy, and then you give back the energy to the partner by having sex with the partner. So theoretically, if there were 4 of you in bed, it would not be so terrible, or even 3 of you in bed. But what normally happens is, after a while, those people that you're having sex with become disgusted and discouraged, and they move on, and then you find more people to have sex with, and it's just a diminution of energy. That's the real problem there. You don't have that yin-yang, where you're one and you're merging, and it's becoming stronger and stronger over time, and more wonderful and more delicious. So that's why if you're in a monogamous relationship, you want to make it a fabulous relationship. Otherwise, you end up with nothing.
Okay, that really makes sense, Susan. And do you mean old-fashioned morality or something different? I bet it's the later.
Well, when we're talking about morality, it is whatever you believe is important. So it isn't about what your parents thought was important. I don't ascribe to believing what your church believes just because your church believes it. I believe that it is essential for you to be in touch with what you believe is right for you. What do you think is right for you and your family? And you and your partner have to be on the same page with that. It's difficult even in the smallest detail where one person is a vegetarian and the other one isn't. You have huge wars over that. So being on the same page with each other, understanding what you believe is your sense of morality, your ethos, what you believe a human being stands for, this is something that you need to share. And you can't have a partner who just gives it lip service. They have to be on the same page with you.
That communication factor. Okay, but isn't sex and monogamy, isn't that about love too?
Well, you know, love, according to Marshall Rosenberg, and you studied him as well, and nonviolent communication, love is a word that just means needs met. So I love you if you meet enough of my needs. I don't love you if you don't meet enough of my needs, but you could meet more of them later. So Marshall did a very famous thing where he would say to somebody, just keep asking me if I love you, and I'll give you different answers and just, go along with it. So they would be in front of the room and somebody would say, Marshall, do you love me? And he would say, not right now, but ask me later. And then she would say, Marshall, do you love me? And he would say, yes, right now I do. I do love you right now. So he had a very big emphasis on authenticity. Very big emphasis on being in the now, being in the moment. He had a very strong Buddhist, side to him that he didn't speak about, but everything that he was demonstrating was Buddhist. So being in the now means I love you right now because you meet enough of my needs. Doesn't mean I'm going to do something stupid and run away. It's just I may not be in touch with that love in the moment. And according to Marshall, and the same thing's true for you, whoever you might be. You're doing it too, even though you may try to put yourself into the bed of Christus and say, oh, I do love you, I'm always loving you, I eternally love you. Usually there's a lie in there someplace. And it's better to tell the truth. It's better to tell the truth. It's better to be able to hear your partner tell the truth. It's better to be able to understand this. Believe me, I've been through this myself a bunch of times. And it's much more alive and much more real if you can authentically love and authentically say, not right now, but try me in another 20 minutes.
Perfectly said. And I love that example that Marshall has shared with us so many times. That's great. And truthful.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, right?
Exactly.
Now, how is healthy something, how is that such a big factor in an actual marriage? This is really interesting to me.
When you said I do and you pledged your vows, your troth, your worldly goods, your body is part of that worldly goods. Don't give me that I have a headache, honey, I'm not in the mood. You gave your word. Don't give me that I feel like eating 6 pounds of chocolate today or having 17 cups of coffee. You gave your word. You gave your word to keep your body healthy, mind and body. You promised. So this is a really huge thing. If you're marrying somebody who's got addiction issues, what are you marrying? You're marrying somebody who can't keep his word or her word. You can't get married to that. If you're marrying somebody who doesn't want to take care of himself or herself, or has a lot of trouble controlling just eccentric behaviors, you can't marry that because that person is not capable of giving his or her word and keeping with it. At the same time, you can have somebody who has amazing physical health, amazing mental health, but they're not really present. There's no intimacy. So what are they promising you? Nothing. So these are all the things that you need to assess long before you either propose to somebody or long before you say yes. Until you are clear about all this, and it should take a couple of years. You know, somebody can say, oh, absolutely, I always take care of myself, you know, and then you find out, you know, 5 minutes before they have to get into a bathing suit, they stop eating for 3 days. No, not before an awards show. That's not taking good care. That's just cramming for a test. So you need to be sure that the person you are committing yourself to is someone who is on the same page with you and understands commitment within a marriage. And honestly, I believe there are very few people who are prepared. And I can tell you that the 2 people I married, they had no business being married, and I had no business being married. You know, it ended a long time ago. It's now been a long time. You know, 1998 is when I separated. But still, I didn't know how little I knew. They certainly didn't know how little they knew. And when I talk to people who are having trouble in their marriage, they have no idea what the true causality is. And it's right there in what I just said.
Well, that makes perfect sense, Susan. Thank you for clarity on that issue. A lot to consider before the gold ring, folks, right? Okay, what about this issue? A lot of marriages have complications because of the money.
Yeah, God knows. I've seen those because I'm a divorce mediator. Yeah, again, people need to be straightforward. They need to be honest with each other. Honesty can look a lot of different ways. Honesty can be having money. It can be not having money. It can be about debt. It can be about the scariest form of debt, debt to the IRS. It can be about having a bad year last year, but having 5 good years before that, but having no idea whether you're going to have a good year next year in business. So there are so many aspects of money. It can have to do with everything from your husband is generous to your husband's not generous. You're generous, you're not generous. You have plenty of money, either of you, but you want to keep it all for yourself. Or as someone Gigi and I know once said, what's mine is mine and what's his is mine. And she said it so many times, and she clearly wasn't making a joke, that by the time they divorced, he made sure what was his and what was hers, as well he should have, So just be very, very aware. Be aware of what you're saying. Don't say things that are like that, you know, just problems waiting to happen. And if the person you're thinking of marrying behaves in a way that you can see is problematic, difficult, unattractive, unappealing, lacking in generosity, you can't merge into one with someone who isn't generous. So it's a little tricky. How do you know if that person is generous if they're not generous beforehand? I know I was always very, very generous before I married them, during the marriage, and, you know, sadly not for them, not generous afterwards. But that's, you know, that's the deal.
A lot of indicators to look for.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
For sure.
Now, how is the category of investments different from money?
Well, a lot of people, like Gigi and I, we're very right-brained. So certainly investment was not anything I did. I had people who did it when there was a lot to invest. And I didn't really understand it. And I work with women who are married to guys who are making all the investments for them. They don't even know where the money is. They don't know where the money is. What if the guy is in an accident? What if, God forbid, he's in a hospital? What if, heaven help us, he's in a coma? They don't know where the money is. They don't have a relationship with the broker. Nothing. This is not only dangerous, this is complete unconsciousness. So if you're married or if you're in a long-term relationship with someone, that person has to explain this to you, has to bring you along for the ride, has to introduce you to the key players so that if there's anything that goes sideways, you can make the appropriate action happen even if there's a secondary person who's got the power of attorney and the financial power of attorney, you still need to know where the money is and what's happening with it. Okay.
Good point. So we've got to do our homework. Now, I know that men always want women to perhaps look as beautiful as possible. And does that work both ways?
Well, yes. Appearance is something you do for your partner, not for yourself. If you're someone who says, I really don't care about clothes, I don't care about my hair, I don't wear makeup, that's great if your partner doesn't care about your clothes, doesn't care about your hair, and if you're a woman, doesn't care about your makeup. But the truth is, almost everybody cares about the way their partner looks. And what do you think is the thing that makes you sexy? It isn't just the way you sound. It isn't just the way you think. A lot of what makes you sexy has to do with how does your hair look? If you're a woman, how does your makeup look? If you're a man or a woman, how do your clothes look? Are you well groomed? If you're a woman, what do your nails look like? All of these things are non-negotiable. And if your husband doesn't like your hair, change it. If your wife doesn't like your hair, redo it. Because that's the person who has to look at you all the time. 10,000 times more than we look at ourselves.
I know, what a thought. Sometimes I rarely even brush through my hair quite often.
But that's why
it's
we
okay.
live alone.
I'm
It's so
single.
easy, right? If we were living with people, we'd have to look like this every day, every hour, right?
We do it for ourselves as well.
right.
I just
That's
want
right.
to point
That's
that
right.
out.
Sure.
And so, well, what about having a wife who just takes care of the home?
Well, the home is the domain, not the wife taking care of it. That's an important distinction. So if you have a wife who takes care of your home, that's great. You need to keep her really happy so she keeps keeping care of your home if that's what you want. But this is about the home. What kind of a home are you going to have? What kind of a home do you guys agree you want to have? Who's responsible for what in the home? And nowadays, you really don't have that many one-income families. Or if you do, the wife is still doing some nonprofit, some giving back, junior league, whatever it may be, helping her husband with his business if he's an entrepreneur. So you don't have a lot of couples where the wife just sits around the house and the servants do everything and she goes out to lunch. So you've got to make sure that you have an understanding about this and an agreement about this. It's really crucial. Because any one of these 19 domains, the marriage rises or falls on that domain where the trouble is. Doesn't matter where the trouble is. That's the one that your marriage is going to fall apart because you haven't attended to that.
Thank you. So that brings up the topic of how do couples really need to consider each other's careers in a new way of looking at careers together.
Right.
That's a little tricky, but needs to be considered.
You have so many people where they think they can just change jobs because they want to. It's all about autonomy. Most of these issues where there are trouble in a marriage is, I want to do what I want to do because I want to do it, and don't tell me to do something different. And then the wife or the husband says, but sweetheart, aren't we two merged as one, to use my Heartspace expression? And then the partner goes, yeah, but not in this. But I'm going on a business trip and I'm leaving on Wednesday, and take it or leave it. And then I'm going, in another month, and I'm going a month later, and all the rest of it, and you don't like it, you don't like it. And you see this with each of them. They want to do what they want to do. They want to change jobs. They want to stay in that job even though they're not getting a raise. They want to go along with some crazy thing that their boss is demanding of them. Whatever it is, your career is one of the domains of a successful marriage. You and your partner need to talk about what that means, and each of you has to be willing to make adjustments based on your group needs. So it's not you have needs and the other one has needs. Group needs. Just like in the bedroom, just like with sex, just like in the kitchen when you're making food or one of you is making food for both of you to eat. All of these things, two people co-creating decisions together.
Beautiful.
I feel like saying maybe you've heard of it.